Hello and welcome, I'm Neodleen, and today we're talking about something slightly different. We're talking about the lore of the dragons of Middle-earth. I wanted for a while to do a lore video, but I just haven't had the time to do it. But now I've decided, hey, why not? So just so you know, this is my knowledge on the dragons of Middle-earth. If you have anything else you want to tell me, if I didn't mention something, just you can tell me. So the main things we're talking about are the origins and history of the dragons. So that's going back all the way to Quentin's Silmarillion. Then there's the more iconic dragons. I believe there are 4 of them. Well, at least I know 4 of them. And then there are the appearances of other dragons that have been named in games that aren't named in Tolkien lore. So then, they've begun by the first dragon was created by Melkor, also known as Morgoth, from within the pits of Angband. They're meant to be the embodiments of the evils of elves, men, and dwarves, and so they are truly hated opponents and foes. And there are 2 main forms of the dragon: the cold drakes and the fire drakes. The fire drakes are also known as the Uruloki, for those that didn't know. The first dragons originally were wingless, but later on there came the winged dragons in the age of Ancalagon. And there were also, in later readings of Tolkien's work, there were serpent-like dragons, also known as worms. For those that have played things like Battle for Middle-earth, you'll know a lot about all 3 of these kinds of dragons. Glaurung, the first of the fire drakes, the father of dragons, the first of this grand spawn, created by Melkor in Angband. He was, after a century of brooding and growing in strength, was released upon the elves and men that were besieging Angband. And with this, the world trembled. For they knew that a new power had arisen in the world. However, Melkor was not exactly pleased with his creation's test of strength. He was hopefully waiting until he had grown fully in strength. For at this time Glaurung was still weak, his underbelly still pierceable by any blade. But after two more whole centuries, he had grown so big and so powerful that it seemed almost impossible to beat him. And even after destroying the kingdom of Nargothrond, the hidden mountain region realm, yes, of the elves, it was thought that no one would be able to beat him. But then, if almost as if from prophecy, the mortal Turin Turumbar struck Glaurung by surprise and slew the great dragon with his sword. I keep forgetting the name of his sword now. I want to say Gurthang? Yeah, Gurthang. I probably should have done me testing of knowledge before doing this. But yes, his story wasn't exactly short-lived, but he is well known for his ability to breed by himself, which is in its own a miraculous feat. So it wasn't just him, but Glaurung's massive army of fire drakes that he too had created by himself, that managed to destroy the kingdom of Nargothrond, that won him the 4th and 5th War of Beleriand, the War of Unnumbering Tears, I believe it was called. Glaurung was truly a mighty dragon, but nothing compared to the great power of Ancalagon the Black, the first winged fire drake, and he definitely would not be the last. But he truly was the greatest and the last defence of Melkor's realm. His very death managed to collapse the towers of Fangolodrim, after he was defeated by Elendil, who wielded within his floating ship, which sounds very ridiculous when you think about it. But if they were to put it into a film, it would be pretty epic. Wielded, as I was saying, Elendil wielded one of the Silmarils, and with his ship collided into Ancalagon and defeated him. And that collapsed the towers of Fangorodrim and destroyed Angband. And with his death, sealed the fate of the war of Melkor and ended the War of Wrath. Ancalagon, for those that don't know, means rushing death, or no, rushing jaws. And unlike any other winged fire drake before him, he truly was of great and immense size. It's not very well shown in this image, but his even Smaug or Glaurung before him would not even be able to compare to the size of Ancalagon the Black. For he truly was the greatest and mightiest dragon to ever have lived. And as they say, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. Although not very well known, Scatha the Worm was still a very prominent figure during the Third Age. As a worm of the Grey Mountains, he, along with many of his kin, managed to deal massive damage to the dwarves and men of the north. However, he faced his death, as many famous dragons do, by the hand of the most, not unlikely, but definitely by the most unexpected of foes, Fram, the chieftain of the Aertheod. And I believe after Scatha's death, Fram was gifted a region, or was it Earl? Either way, the Aertheod later also known as the Rohirrim, for those that didn't know. And finally, the last of the four, but definitely not the least, Smaug the Golden, the chiefest and greatest of calamities of the Third Age, ruler of Erebor for 2 whole centuries. Unlike Ancalagon, during Smaug's time there weren't many beings strong enough to take down a dragon, and those that did were either very far away or did not trouble themselves with trying to kill a dragon, for they knew truly the sorrow that came with death. And those were mainly the elves, for elves know truly of pain and suffering, and would not want to repeat it lest it be absolutely necessary. However, Smaug did perish. For those that didn't know, spoiler alert, he was killed by Bard the Bowman by striking a black arrow into his one weak spot on his chest. And although it was a very unlikely shot, Bard managed to take it, because, you know, the good guy always has to win. Poor Smaug. But being known as a true master of death, his teeth-like claws, teeth-like swords, claws-like spears, wings that could make a hurricane, his breath, death. He truly was, during the Third Age, the greatest dragon to have been mentioned in Tolkien's mythology. And there's no mistaking that he, along with any other dragons that could have existed, were truly a great threat during the time of the Third Age. But after Smaug's departure and death, there was never really much information about any other dragons that might have existed. Just that they remain in the Grey Mountains. And even through the Fourth Age, no single dragon ever dared leave their holds in the Grey Mountains. No, even though they could have easily defeated many foes, those that they would have faced would surely find a way to defeat them in the end. And finally, the 2 dragons that were named through the game's histories Aghast from the War of the Ring, and Drogoth the Dragon Lord from Battle for Middle-earth 2. From what I remember of Aghast, he is simply... imagine Smaug, but if he had a slightly wider mouth, more teeth, and didn't want to take over Erebor, but instead wanted Angmar, or more importantly, the fortress of Khand Dûm. Aghast was about the same size as Smaug, which makes me believe he might have been the same offspring as Smaug, but unlike him was more mellow, was not exactly wanting to join in the war, instead preferred to just remain in his hovel and not bother with anything or anyone, but would obviously kill anything that dared come in his way. Later taking a pact with an elf, man and a dwarf, the pact was made, and if Aghast was to claim Khand Dûm after defeating Agandaur, or after the company would defeat Agandaur, Aghast would never take part in any war, would not interfere with any plans or any of the races that existed in Middle-earth. He would simply leave everyone else alone. And he did. Well, at least he held up his end of the bargain for what we know. Obviously, in the future, there might have been something that might have caught Aghast's attention. If, for example, the Dagor-Dagorath, if that were to be actually existent, Aghast would have possibly taken a part in it. But it is very unlikely, unless his master himself was to call upon the great dragon once again. And then we take a look at Drogoth the Dragon Lord from Battle for Middle-earth 2. Although there isn't as much to talk about with Drogoth compared to Aghast, Drogoth obviously must have earned his title somehow. Living in the Withered Heath, a certain area in the Grey Mountains that was known for the spawnings of many fire drakes, winged and wingless, including many other dragons such as the Worms. Drogoth might have been simply a patriarch of those dragons, maybe the main, I wouldn't say broodmother, but definitely the one to have created, to have brooded most of the dragons that would have existed in that region. As can be seen, he also wears some kind of armour around his neck and head, which does give some kind of lineage to him, some kind of strength that other dragons would not oppose. But in the Battle for Middle-earth, in both campaigns, in the good campaign he's defeated in the Blue Mountains after the mouth of Sauron tempts him with one of the Dwarven rings. But in the evil campaign, he and his brood marches to war with the mouth of Sauron, with the temptation of one of the rings of power gifted to him. Other than that, he is again a winged fire drake, similar to Aghast and Smaug. Possesses extreme fire breath, perhaps closer to Glaurung's strength of fire breath. But regardless, in the end, he was just but another fire drake. So I hope you all enjoyed this. Obviously, this being my first might not be the best. Obviously, there might be improvements in the future of these videos. If you did enjoy, leave a like, comment again on if you want to see any specific race or battle or anything like that. To be honest, this was very difficult for me because I did so many takes of this, but I finally managed to get it down into one video. So I hope you enjoy, and I will see you all next time. Farewell.